Happy Friday and welcome to episode 54 of the Southern Conservative Podcast. My name is Ty. I want to thank those who listen to these podcasts for patiently waiting for my return. There is no way to cover more than a week of politics in this podcast, but I think we can sum up a lot of what has happened over the last week by saying that the left is really showing who they really are. And by doing so, the American people are turning away from this progressive, anti-Trump, pro-Russian collusion narrative. And I'm going to highlight examples from just this past week to make my point. In the wee hours of Thursday morning, it was right around 3 a.m., President Trump and Vice President Mike Pence, along with Secretary of State Mike Pompeo, greeted 3 Americans who were being held hostage in North Korea. This came after Trump announced on Tuesday that America would be withdrawing from the Iran nuclear agreement. Let's take the Iran deal first. This was a disaster of a deal. It's important that we remember how this deal came about in the first place. America and our allies, but mostly America, had crippled Iran with huge sanctions. Iran was practically begging for a deal. We knew that Iran was developing a nuclear weapons program. We knew that they were investing in researching and developing a nuclear energy program, which really made no sense given all the oil that country has. And of course, Iran was developing a nuclear program for nefarious reasons. You couple this with chants of death to Israel and death to America, and it's pretty clear what Iran's intentions are. Iran was also developing missiles, including intercontinental ballistic missiles, ICBMs. Attach a nuclear warhead to one of those ICBMs, and you've got major trouble. Not to mention that Iran is the number one country that sponsors terrorism, such as Hamas and Hezbollah and other terrorist organizations. So Iran's economy was crippled, and what money they had was spent on developing nuclear weapons and advancing their nuclear program. And we needed to stop Iran from developing nuclear weapons. So Barack Obama and his Secretary of State John Kerry set out to strike a deal with Iran. Only this deal was absolutely lousy. Iran got concession after concession after concession. They got $150 billion and $1.7 billion in foreign currency, hard cash. $1.7 billion worth. I'll come back to that money soon. Iran never let international inspectors check out their military sites, which is where Iran was conducting their nuclear research and refining. Iran was able to set the terms on nuclear inspections. Iran was not supposed to be enriching high-grade uranium that would be needed to make a nuclear weapon. There was a sunset clause in the deal whereby Iran could go full steam ahead after just 10 years. Folks, Iran never had any intention of tamping down their nuclear program. They actively hid their activities and involvement in nuclear enrichment. And they were able to get billions and billions of dollars from the United States. And they were able to open new trading markets with our European allies. So Iran benefited economically from all of this, and I'm sure dumped money into terrorist activities and into their nuclear program. And what did America get? Well, we surely didn't get a denuclearized Iran. Thankfully, our friends in Israel were able to catch wind of what Iran was doing and how they were hiding their nuclear activities. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu put on a show when he gave a presentation of all of the documents, binders, and CDs Israel was able to obtain that detailed exactly what Iran was doing. It's important to remember that Israel's sheer existence is on the line if Iran ever got a nuclear weapon. In fact, we just saw on Wednesday, Iran launched 20 rockets into the Golan Heights from Syria. Iran can't stand Israel. And so, of course, Israel would want to know everything Iran is up to when it comes to nuclear development. And the timing couldn't have been more perfect, with Netanyahu giving this presentation just days before Trump withdrew the United States from this awful deal. Trump announced immediately that he would be reinstating economic sanctions on Iran. Trump said he was embarrassed as a citizen that the United States would give Iran billions of dollars especially before we found out whether they were complying with the terms in the deal. The deal was rotten, decaying, and ineffective. But the president said he's open to renegotiating a new deal. And if we keep up the sanctions, it should drive Iran back to the bargaining table, just as it did a few years ago. Only I'm sure this time around, Trump and Pompeo would be able to put together a much better deal. Now, I want to talk about the money Iran received. Remember how the $1.7 billion in foreign currency was taken to Iran in the dead of night in unmarked planes? No one knew that pallets of cash were being delivered to Iran, and the American money had to be exchanged for foreign currency first in order to pull this off. And the money was used in order to get back American hostages. This was ransom money. So here we were giving Iran money when they had yet to prove to the world they were abiding by the nuclear agreement. And where was this money going? It wasn't going to help the people of Iran. It was going to help fund terrorism and to help bolster their nuclear activities. What Obama and Kerry did was capitulate and appease. They gave Iran everything they wanted, money and nuclear capabilities. So Trump tore up the agreement and imposed new sanctions on Iran. Trump is getting tough with Iran, just as he is getting tough with North Korea. So let's look now at how things are going in North Korea. So far, things look promising. You had the North Korean leader meet with the South Korean leader in South Korea, basically declaring the Korean War over. Mike Pompeo was able to set up a first meeting between Trump and Kim Jong-un, which will take place on June 12th in Singapore. And no doubt there will be much to talk about. But Kim Jong-un has indicated he's willing to abandon his nuclear activities if the United States promises not to attack. Kim Jong-un is absolutely terrified of Trump. He was never terrified with Obama. His father was never terrified with Bill Clinton when Clinton announced he had reached a deal with North Korea back in the 90s. But we're on track to denuclearizing North Korea and the entire Korean peninsula. We haven't seen a foreign policy achievement this huge since Reagan was able to defeat the Soviet Union. And Trump has been able to do this without giving North Korea large sums of money. He's making significant achievements by being tough, by utilizing peace through strength, just as Reagan did against Mikhail Gorbachev. And yet Democrats lambasted the president, saying he should have worked with our European allies to renegotiate a better deal, rather than withdraw from the Iran nuclear agreement altogether. Netanyahu made it clear what Iran was up to. And as our main ally in the Middle East, we are also looking out for the protection of Israel. And we are looking out for our own national security. With Iran having ICBMs and soon to have nuclear weapons, the United States all of a sudden becomes a target. And Iran hates the United States almost as much as they hate Israel. Make no mistake of that. The president isn't going to wait for our European allies to reach a new deal with Iran. We need to get tough with Iran now, since they clearly had no intention of abiding by Obama and Kerry's agreement from day one. And since when do we take the lead from Germany and France? Look at how those countries have changed as a result of a large influx of Muslim migrants and refugees. Look at the rise of terrorism in those two countries. Angela Merkel is starting to crack down on the problem in Germany, but she's let it get way out of hand. So I applaud Trump for what he did. It was the correct decision, and we should all be standing behind the president. On top of that, Mike Pompeo was able to secure 3 Korean Americans who were being held hostage in North Korea. Again, no ransom money involved. No silly nuclear deal like the one we had with Iran. And this is coming on the heels of withdrawing from the Iran deal and with upcoming talks of trying to denuclearize the Korean peninsula. This is huge. Pompeo is definitely proving himself in the role of Secretary of State, and we should all be proud of him and the president. I want to remind everyone to please check out my Facebook page. Go to facebook.com/Southern Conservative. That's facebook.com/Southern Conservative. There you will find links to conservative news articles on stories you may not hear about in the mainstream media. Plus, if you follow the news feed, you'll find links to the daily podcast. Be sure to also subscribe to this YouTube channel and click on the notifications bell so you'll be alerted each time a new podcast has been posted. New podcasts are posted daily, Monday through Thursday. Next, I want to talk about the grilling of Gina Haspel, Trump's nominee to be the next CIA director. Haspel has a long career in the CIA. She was an important figure after 9/11, in which she was involved in the enhanced interrogation of top terrorists responsible for the 9/11 attacks. And she was grilled earlier this week in the Senate by several Democrat senators, including Kamala Harris of California, Martin Heinrich of New Mexico, Jack Reed of Rhode Island, and Mark Warner of Virginia. And in short, they all questioned Haspel's moral integrity when it came to the decision to waterboard terrorists. Now, this is ridiculous to a level I can't even tell you. On 9/11, we were attacked out of the blue. No one saw it coming, at least not to the extent that it happened. 3,000 people were killed that day in a matter of hours. Hundreds were killed at the Pentagon in Virginia, and Mark Warner, who represents Virginia where the Pentagon is going to question the decisions made by top officials within the CIA. We didn't know the exact men who were behind these attacks, and we didn't know if more attacks were on the way. So we waterboarded some terrorists. These terrorists were in no danger. Hell, their medical status was closely supervised. The mastermind behind 9/11 was able to count down how long each waterboarding session lasted, 10 seconds. He knew his life wasn't in danger. And despite what the left will tell you, we did get valuable information from these terrorists that helped prevent future attacks, including a supposed attack on the Brooklyn Bridge. American lives were saved as a result of these techniques, and these senators have the audacity to question what the government was doing during this unusual and extraordinary time. They questioned the morality of the government against these terrorists when the government was trying to ensure the protection of American citizens. We're talking about terrorists who have no moral compass whatsoever, have no problem cutting off heads and burning people alive in cages. And this is rich coming from the left. Where's their moral compass when it comes to abortion? You know, the attacks on Haspel come mainly because she's a nominee of Donald Trump. Had a Democrat nominated this woman, and that would never happen because of the waterboarding issue. But if a Democrat had nominated this woman, they would be overjoyed at the prospects of the first woman leading the CIA. This woman is more than qualified to be the director of the CIA. As deputy director, she's really the one who has her hands in the day-to-day operations in the CIA. Hopefully, she'll be confirmed by the Senate. And finally, I want to tout some economic numbers. Last week, we got the jobs report for April, and we are now at 3.9% unemployment, the lowest since 2000. The president was quick to announce that we had broken the 4% level, and we have reached the lowest unemployment rate so far this century. African American unemployment rate is at an all-time low. Unemployment claims last week came in lower than what was expected, with only 211,000 claims for the week ending on May 5th, compared to 218,000 expected. The number of unemployment claims is the lowest since December 1969. Absolutely incredible. And something unusual has also happened that I don't think was reported very much. The number of people unemployed, especially in the last 10 years, has been significantly higher than the number of job openings available, meaning there were less jobs available than the number of people who could possibly fill those jobs, meaning hiring and economic expansion was piss poor. There were hardly any jobs to be found with respect to the number of people who didn't have a job. Well, now the latest data shows the number of unemployed is almost identical to the number of job openings available. In other words, the labor market is tight right now. And at that rate, we're going to have the number of unemployed be lower than the number of jobs available. So employers may soon have a tough time finding more help. And guess what that does? It drives up wages. With more jobs available than people able to fill those jobs, employers will do what they can to sweeten the deal and attract workers. And it's also a sign that the economy is taking off. People are finding work, they're sticking with their jobs, a sign of low unemployment claims, and businesses are expanding, thanks in part to Trump's tax cuts. And yet, Democrats are touting how they will undo Trump's tax cuts if they take control of the House next year. Seriously? They want to undo all of this economic progress that we never saw under President Obama. I'll remind everyone that Obama was the only president in history never to get to 3% GDP growth in any year that he was president. By raising taxes, the Democrats are saying they want to take more of your hard-earned money. They think the government can spend your money better than what you can. Of course, the left will just take your money and redistribute it to those who don't have as much. But you can see what we're up against with the left this November. They bashed the president for getting out of the Iran deal. They don't give Trump the credit he's due for the economic growth we're experiencing. They criticize the president for thanking Kim Jong-un for releasing 3 American hostages, when Trump has reiterated he's going to continue to press North Korea hard. The same media was previously criticizing Trump for being too hard on Kim Jong-un and possibly starting a nuclear war with that country. The man can't catch a break. And the American people are waking up to this. The most recent poll in the generic congressional ballot shows Democrats only have a 3-point lead over Republicans. If they want to take control of the House, they need about a 6 to 7-point lead. If the left continues to push this anti-Trump, pro-Russian collusion, socialist, progressive agenda, they will not do well this November. We'll have to stay tuned for that. And that's it for today. Next week, there will only be podcasts on Monday and Tuesday as my family is coming to South Carolina. Have a great weekend, everybody.